A pair of U.S. jets intercepted 2 Russian fighter aircraft over Syria on Tuesday, the Pentagon said, the kind of highly dangerous yet constant encounter that's occurring with more regularity despite agreements between the countries to avoid potentially deadly mistakes. 2 F-22A Raptors were diverted from supporting ground operations against Islamic State militants and intercepted the Russian Su-25S aircraft after they crossed into U.S. coalition airspace east of the Euphrates River near Abu Kamal, a key city on the border of Iraq and the region where militants have congregated following defeat in Raqqa. The Russian warplanes were so close to coalition jets that the jets shot flares and even chaff clouds of metal meant to confuse radar systems but possibly used in this case as an additional visual warning. One of the U.S. pilots also performed an aggressive maneuver to avoid a mid-air collision, said Eric Payan, a Pentagon spokesman. Multiple calls to the emergency channel established to avoid such issues were made during the 40-minute encounter, Payan said, culminating in a tense moment when one of the F-22s shadowed its Russian counterpart. On visit to Syria, Putin lauds victory over ISIS and announces withdrawals. The Syrian skies have become another contested battle space between old adversaries, as Assad regime forces backed by Russian air power and advisors on the ground have defeated rebel groups. Defense officials worry continued fights over airspace could quickly heighten tensions between the nations as pilots make split-second decisions at the helm of armed jets flying hundreds of miles an hour, raising the chance of a miscalculation that results in either a collision or a shoot-down if they feel coalition troops are at risk. Russians agreed in November to maintain flights west of the Euphrates while coalition aircraft would maintain corridors in the east, with the understanding that they would use established deconfliction channels between senior commanders first established in 2015 to avoid catastrophes. ISIS stole U.S. supplied rockets weeks after they arrived in Syria, report says. "We're trying to kill ISIS. But we're also trying to contend with unsafe interaction with Russian jets," Payan said. Since the agreement, Russians have flown east of the river 6 to 8 times a day, which is about 10% of all Russian and Syrian flights, he said. Agreements to deconflict were reviewed in September after Russian targeted and wounded U.S. proxy forces near Deir al-Zur, another city on the river where Islamic State fighters have converged in recent months. "It couldn't be more complex and crowded in that area," said the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Marine General Joseph F. Dunford, Jr., describing the Euphrates River Valley following the incident. "Deconfliction is more difficult in that area than it was a few months ago." The incident came just days after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced during a visit to a base in Syria he would scale back air operations, a suggestion that triggered skepticism in the Pentagon based on earlier statements of force reductions that never materialized.